In the end, it doesn't matter who was right, but who was right?
The missus. The missus was right.
The truth comes out.
The missus was right.
Welcome to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And this week, we are going to be talking about disagreements, differences, what to do when you and your partner have sort of a different perspective on parenting issues and how to resolve that. But before we get into all of that, Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us, where can they find us?
Please give us a like, a follow, whatever you can on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And please, you can find any of our episodes anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's right. So, Brandon, how are things going with Austin and Noah this week?
We have got a lot of developments on that front. We've been doing quite a bit. The biggest, I guess, news is that Noah has officially graduated from the infant room at daycare.
Oh, congratulations.
He is moving on up in the world to the cutely named Wobblers room.
Wobblers, I love that.
Exactly, because, they're kind of walking, but they're kind of wobbling a little bit. So he started that just yesterday. It was his first day. Said it went great.
That's awesome.
The fun part is he's kind of been auditing the class. He's just been kind of dropping in on like a daily basis, just see what's up, get acclimated.
Yeah.
And now he's ready to go full time on that. So it's a lot of fun. It's a big change, and that is kind of part of what we'll be talking about later on in the episode is like all the big development changes that go with it because, these kids are all on a schedule. You don't just get to like kind of take a nap whenever you want to. Everyone kind of takes naps at the same time.
Yeah.
Everyone eats, kind of sitting down, usually with a plate. Solid foods, you don't do bottles so much. So like a lot of big life changes come with that move.
Yeah, seriously.
And so we've kind of been dreading it just a little bit from that perspective. Like, are we keeping up? And that's quite a bit of why we have this episode today to talk about the differences of opinion and how we kind of got to this moment in time. Also went to a birthday party, which is not
a kid's birthday party.
Kid's birthday party, yes, thank you. Which was pretty cool. So shout out to Arya, whose birthday it was, and it was at like a petting zoo, barn, farm kind of a combination there.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun. Like Noah can't walk super well or anything like that, so we mostly just have a lot of cute photos of him sitting on the ground next to like a goat.
Oh, that is so
and
cool.
And just kind of like petting him and things like that. And so we had a busy time. We were all up in it this past week. How has it been for you guys?
It's been good. Well, I want to say it's cool that you mentioned that because we've been talking about taking David to a petting zoo. There's here in Atlanta where we're recording this podcast, there are a few options. You can go to Zoo Atlanta, which is a really big zoo here in town.
Right.
You can also go to Stone Mountain Park where we were this past weekend. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we've been thinking about this because David has gotten very friendly with our dog, Maya. She's a small rat terrier, so she's, about half his height, really, or maybe closer to his height, but they're very friendly with each other. He likes to pet her, likes to play with her, and he's lately taken to feeding her. And by feeding her, I mean he'll take her food out of her bowl and place it on the ground or walk up and try and put it in her mouth or even like put it on the couch because she sits on the couch sometimes. So we thought, well, yeah, it's a natural progression. He can go feed some goats and stuff, some baby goats. And we kind of want him to learn how to actually feed the animals because lately what he's actually been doing is just eating the dog food himself.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Which, it's not going to kill him. I guess I did that as a child. My mom will tell me I actually got on my hands and knees as a toddler and ate out of the dog bowl like a dog with my mouth. So David's he's a step above that. He'll take it with his hands, so he's more civilized.
Absolutely.
So I'll give him that.
He's more evolved. Yeah.
Exactly. But I kind of freaked out the first time I saw him do that. I was taking a video of him because I thought, oh, so cute. He's feeding the dog.
Yeah.
And then he reaches and I don't even notice till he's got it in his mouth. I'm like, no, David.
Right. Exactly. They are quick. They will sneak some of that food in there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. So besides that, I mentioned that we went to the park this past weekend. We did it for a picnic.
Nice.
A company picnic at at Stone Mountain Park here in Georgia. It was a lot of fun. It rained on us about halfway through. And it kind of put a damper on things. David and I were in the bouncy castle when that happened.
Sweet.
My son is 18 months old, so he's not really old enough to jump up and down himself in there.
Yeah.
But I kind of took him in and sat down with him and let him kind of enjoy it, and the other kids are bouncing around. And then the deluge starts coming, and it's pouring on us, and the roof starts caving in. So we had to make a quick escape, and that scared him a little bit.
I'm sure.
But, he's been having fun. He did his first moment where he took a bite of food on his fork, like plucked it off the plate with his baby fork and ate it himself for the first time last night, actually. That was a pretty cool moment. For the most part, he'll just play with his fork, stick it in his hair. He likes to do that for some reason. Yeah, it's a good thing dinner time's right before bath time, or else we have a messy situation every night. But I mean, that's about it. Other than that, it's just been business as usual, trying to help him kind of stay alive, really.
Just which a day-to-day job, yeah.
Exactly, which can be exhausting. So on to this week's topic, disagreements, differences of opinion in parenting. Brandon, you had the idea for doing this episode. You texted me about it last week, and why don't we talk a little bit about where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's a good relationship without a little bit of controversy, a little bit of drama? And so we talk often about different things and challenges in parenting, and obviously behind all of that is usually a conversation, and oftentimes also somewhat of a disagreement of opinion. Because if you're fortunate in our positions, we each have us and our wives. So there's two of us here. So that means you have two different people who may think two different things.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit at the top of the show about how Noah's kind of moving on up at daycare. And with that comes a lot of big developments, like moving from bottles to solid foods.
Yeah.
And that's been a big struggle for us. And that's really where the idea came from, because he was having a really tough time getting used to solid foods. We try everything, something different every night. If he seemed like he liked something, we'd try it again and he would hate it. And so if you've ever gone through this process, you know what I'm talking about. This is run of the mill. I mean, this isn't like danger zone necessarily, but like after a month, 2 months of like trying to get him every night to like have a little solid food at dinner, we just getting no progress. And Noah has always kind of been on the low end of the weight scale to begin with. He's in like the 10 percentile. So he's always been very thin, and he used to have troubles with gaining weight anyway. So we were just doubly worried that A, he's got to develop into eating solid foods because that's just the time of where he's at. And then B, if he doesn't, he's going to lose weight, which is already a struggle for him. And then he's going to have trouble gaining it because he doesn't like solid foods. So we were kind of at the point where it just didn't really know what to do. I mean, we were just kind of plodding along day to day, just doing the same old thing. And then for some reason, I had this great idea that we should talk about it. And, as a couple, even in a relationship, parenting or not, you just know that, like, if you don't talk about things, you just kind of keep going on. If you decide to talk about it, stuff can happen. Yeah. Stuff can happen. Thoughts and feelings can really come out in just a lot of really passionate ways.
Sure.
And so that's what happened, to put it nicely. We had a discussion about what we should do with Noah and his habits. And I was really kind of the gung-ho one in this situation of like, we've got to do something. Like nothing is happening, so we have to spur some kind of change in him in development. So at the face of it, we had this difference of like, I was ready to do something more drastic or just try something else. And, my wife wasn't, it's not that she was opposed to it. She just wasn't on that same page with me. Like she was just like, well, we're just trying, we're keeping on. Right. And another kind of component of this that we later found out, like you go through the argument and you start to actually unravel things and you start to actually learn where the differences come from. And that's why this was so interesting to me, because it wasn't just that we had a different thought of the approach or different timing of like, I wanted to do it now, she wanted to wait another week, whatever. But we actually had a fundamental difference in what we remembered getting in terms of advice from our pediatrician. So this is another very interesting thing that we learned where, you go to the doctor and you kind of rely on them as your sage. Right. Your guide, your whatever you want to call them, like your person who's taking you through the journey, and like you pump them with information every time you can. And then you have to remember it. And it's very hard.
It is, yeah.
Because I don't think we give ourselves, well, I guess we give ourselves too much credit because we clearly did not remember the same conversation the same way.
Yeah.
And this was kind of at the crux of our misunderstanding because I had taken it that the doctor had basically told us, keep trying every night to feed him. And if he just doesn't take it, you can start trying things other than that, like taking away some of his bottles and kind of encouraging him to get, to eat because he'll be hungrier because he won't have the bottles. And my wife thought, well, like, whoa, that sounds like crazy drastic. Like, we're not going to starve our child. And she just didn't, it wasn't just that she was opposed to that concept because that sounds quite drastic, but she just didn't get that same information from the doctor. So we had two different kind of sources of information. And that obviously led to just a lot of confusion because I was like, no, we were told this is okay. And she was like, no, you're not that I was making it up, but like that wasn't how that came out.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It was said in a different way.
Right. You received the same conversation differently from two different perspectives. And I mean, we know how memory works. Like your memory kind of shapes over time. And the way you remember something is not necessarily the way that it happens. So you both might have had your own kind of opinions mixed into the way that you remembered a factual event that actually happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I get that.
And we don't have a lot to draw on. We're a year into this, so we don't exactly have... The biggest problem I'm finding is like the experience you gain along the way feels comforting, but then you just have to throw it out the window because you're moving on to the next thing. Yeah. Like you don't quite get into a rhythm or a routine because then your child develops a whole new skill set.
Yep, a whole new challenge.
You just got to move on to the next thing. And you don't really get to keep it. So we had differences of like wanting to take action and maybe not take action right away. And then we had a difference of we thought we had heard this kind of advice and we had a different kind of advice because that's about all we can rely on is like, what are other people doing? Yeah. And one of the biggest struggles with that as well is that we saw a lot of people about Noah's age who had already surpassed him in terms of taking on solid foods. Sure. Like they just went at it, no problem. Other kids were just like, nom, 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 nom. They just love solid food, no problem. Noah's like, I hate this with every fiber of my being. Yeah. So we're falling into a lot of classic, now what I can say are classic tropes of parenting. Such as just not talking about things. Yeah, yeah, classic. Until it blows up. Comparing our kids again. Oh, yeah. And you've heard a number of episodes of us telling you that that's a bad idea. Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you that we just fell right on into that once again because it's just so hard emotionally to be like, well, why isn't my kid doing that? And so we fell into the comparison trap. And then we ultimately made what I think was a good decision, which was even though we didn't have a doctor's appointment scheduled, we made one anyway, and we went in to get a check-in basically on what's the guidance here. Sure. What's the advice. Good. And that was probably the best thing we could do because we basically were like, well, we're not on the same page. We need to get on the same page. We're not going to get on the same page together. So we need to go talk to like a third party basically who is, supposedly an expert as well to guide us there. And so we did that. We got on the same page. We got the plan kind of back together again. We got everybody on course here and we're kind of moving on and up. And Noah is thankfully now engaging once again with solid foods and he seems to be liking it. He's eating it. A little bit of, things every day, and he's kind of moving forward once again. So it's just like huge relief, burden. And like we joke because the week after we went to the doctor, he started liking solid foods again. Hey, as if he was like, oh no, they're on to me. And he was just like, I'm not a problem, you're the problem. Like, it wasn't I'm fine. Yeah. I'm doing great. Don't take me to the doctor again, please. I'm doing fine. Yeah. And he just like starts eating again and we're like, whatever it was. Yeah, whatever works. Maybe we could have waited, but like, I don't know. I think we did the right thing and like go get some advice once again.
And I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter who was right, but who was right?
The missus. The missus was right.
The truth comes out.
The missus was right.
Well, hey, that's usually the case.
Yeah, I mean, I like to feel like I was doing the right approach because I was trying to let natural course of events take action, and then they just did not. So,
I get it.
Me being me or the man or whatever it is, I'm like, let's go. We gotta put some pressure on the situation.
Any parent can understand that. Yeah. Like, especially if, like you said, you fall into that comparison trap. You're like, they're falling behind. Could this be a problem? Could this be a problem for their development? So for their best interest, I've got to act in their best interest. Right. I got to do something.
Exactly.
I got to step in. So, I mean, that's instinct. Like,
Yeah,
what can you say?
It's a brutal transition period. I mean, what's not a brutal transition period? But like I was excited at the beginning of the show about him graduating from the infant room, but like, I was so worried because it's like they won't let you do it if he's still on bottles or if he's not eating solid foods.
Yeah,
like,
that's the big
all
thing.
they do.
Yeah.
And like they make you feel like there's so much pressure because they're like, oh well, we don't let kids drink out of a bottle in this room. Or like, oh, we only do solid foods.
Now, does your daycare, do they allow, for instance, formula in a sippy cup in that room? Because ours did.
Yeah, so that
was the transition.
That's another
made.
part of it, right? Like we're just like holding all this like fear in, and it's just becoming anger. And like I just had a great Yoda thing going on in my mind, like fear leads to hate.
Yeah.
Hate leads to anger. And like, no, this is really what was happening. Like the fear evolves into anger, and then we're going down to the dark side.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
which leads to suffering.
You're right. We were suffering. We were suffering. That's parenting in a nutshell.
You got to get your midi-chlorians checked, man.
They're low right now. So yeah, we were just struggling, and we were letting like all these outside factors of fear. And I mean, you're right. He's in the wobbler room, and like we still can send him with a bottle just in case. He does take a sippy cup, which they will, fill up with cow's milk if like he's not going after the food for a certain time, and he can sip on some of that. So like,
does he take cow's milk pretty well?
He does. He loves cow's milk. He's totally cool with that. And so formula, cow's milk, whatever it is, like he's pretty happy as long as you're giving him some kind of a liquid there. So
Nice.
It's just like, I don't know. That's my big learning and why I want to talk about it, because it's like all the anger that you kind of build up boils over eventually. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
But I did it. And the comparisons are not good. I did it anyway. And he just like all the classic fails, like just face planted right into him.
Yeah.
Can you uplift us in any way, Jesse? What have you got that can really make us feel better? And by us, I mean me. Feel better about myself.
Well, it's funny. When you brought this up last week, I went home and thought about it, and then I talked to my wife about it last night, and we started talking about, well, where are the places that we disagree? And what we figured out, it's like, for the most part, as parents, we're on the same page on most topics, like, do we do this? When do we do that?
Yeah.
But where we fall into the trap is where our actions don't line up with our perspectives. So, and that's so hard because it ties back into like your identity. Like I see myself as kind of a laid back parent, like, just let them live, let them play in the dirt, yada, yada, yada. But when the cards fall on the table, I find myself turning into a helicopter parent. Just instinctively, I can't avoid that. So where my wife, Ashley, and I will sometimes come into conflict is where, although I think philosophically that I'm just going to be laissez-faire? Yeah. It's been so long since I took economics, I don't know, that I'm just going to be laid back and let him play. I find myself hovering and chasing him around and not letting him be independent. And then when that gets pointed out to me, I swing way around in the opposite direction and I just become way too laid back. This happened actually yesterday. I'm sitting in the kitchen with my kid and he's playing and I'm trying to be hands off. I'm trying to let go even though he's wandering around and, there's so many dangerous things, whatever. But I'm like, I'm just going to let him do it. And I've got my camera in my hand because that's my other problem is that I've always got my camera in my hand. I mean, if you guys follow us on Facebook, you'll see all the photos and the Instagram and everything. But I'm recording him doing cute baby stuff. And my wife's like, well, what's he doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, I'm recording. So I'm not actually there, right? And before I know it, he has taken the dog's water dish and turned it over and spilled water like underneath the furniture and all this stuff. And so I was so hands off trying to be that I let him do something that, I mean, not only could have done some damage to the, the furniture and whatever, but, could have hurt him. Like if he dropped the porcelain water dish on his feet or something. So, that's an area where we've learned that I mean, we're human, we're not always going to act in the way that we think we're supposed to act. So we're having to kind of work with each other on that and call each other out in a gentle way. The other thing that I've noticed is that it's actually something on a list that I'm going to bring up in a second here, things that parents will fight about in the first year. Obviously, it extends to beyond the first year.
Probably a long list, yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, it's a 22-item list, which is much longer than most listicles that you'll find online. But it's parenting related, so there's going to be a lot to talk about. But organization is something that all new parents struggle with, because you all of a sudden have all these new things in the house that you have to keep track of and find a place for. We struggle sometimes with keeping the baby things in the right place because the baby's on the move, right? So I may have his saline spray, his nasal spray, and we keep it in a basket in the living room. But if I need to chase him over to another room or take him upstairs and give him the spray then as I'm changing his diaper, I may forget and leave it there. And so the next morning when I'm at work, my wife is trying to get the baby ready for daycare and can't find the spray or can't find his pacifier or his shorts or something that he needs that she can't get out the door and go to work until she has. So she's got to call me and be like, hey, where's this? And if I'm in a meeting and I can't answer the phone, then she's on her own and then she's half an hour late to work. So obviously that's going to build up frustration. So that's been one area where we are really trying to get it together. And that's been the hard part, is keeping ourselves organized. Because what we've noticed is when your house is cluttered or when you can't find things or when there isn't a place for things, anxiety starts to build up. This is true for my wife because she's a very organized person. So when things aren't organized, it causes anxiety. It's less so with me because I'm just kind of messy.
So, a bit,
yeah. It's easier for me to let it go, which is not great because then I let it go too much and then it gets worse. But that's something we've noticed, and we just have to check ourselves every once in a while and talk about it when tensions rise and we start snipping at each other. Like, where's this? Why don't you ever put this there? Oh, I know I put it there. Why didn't you put it there? We have to slow down and be like, okay, we're just a little anxious right now because of all the stress of parenting. Let's slow down.
Yeah.
And at that point, I want to bring in a couple of helpful links that I found this morning that may help you kind of relate to this if you're a parent, and maybe may offer some helpful tips on how to get out of it. Our first link comes from fatherly.com, a cool fatherhood blog. 22 fights new parents have in the first year and how to solve them. I'm going to breeze through this list because it's a lot of items, and to be honest, in my opinion, some of the solutions they offer are really common sense and maybe not even that helpful.
Okay.
So common fights, and they're starting at the very beginning, and this is something that we can go back and relate to. The fight. Dad doesn't want baby in the bedroom, but mom does.
Oh, yeah.
If you got the kid in the bassinet, and especially if the mother is breastfeeding, she's going to want the kid there, not just for the emotional attachment, but also for the convenience of it. Like if you're having to get up multiple times a night, at least in the very beginning, it helps to have the kid right there next to you. And, pediatricians will recommend different things. But if it gets to the point where you've got one parent who's going back to work and the other parent isn't going back to work yet, and one isn't getting a full night's sleep because the baby is up all night and he's in the bedroom with you, that causes conflict. So their advice was compromise and look to the future. So, if you're a parent and your other parent wants the kid in the bedroom, you can say, okay, that's good for now, but eventually we're going to have to get him out and then help set up a timetable. Basically, for us, it was a 6-month mark. It's going to be different for everybody else.
That's good. Yeah, I think a timetable is good. I will say, though, one thing that also kind of got unraveled within our conversation, not calling it an argument, conversation that I was talking about earlier is that we fell into a trap with the future timetable because when you hit it and you're not ready to cross it, then you run into another problem. Because, everyone is like, oh, I'm going to... feed him until he's a year old. You're going to do breastfeeding until he's a year old. Well, you're not going to stop on day 366.
Yeah.
Probably. So you need to have a realistic expectation about your deadline. When it's coming up, maybe check in.
Yeah.
When it's a little closer.
That's good. The next fight they have is be more careful with the baby. So this is something that I think a lot of dads fall into this trap. I do, where you want to be rough and tumble with the kid because A, it's fun, and B, you're like, oh, I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to throw the baby in the air and do all the cute, fun dad stuff. Part of that to a degree is healthy. We've talked about in a previous episode how rough and tumble play is good for your kid to develop sort of their emotional self as they get older and build up resistance. And it's just good to get physical with your kid in a healthy way, like help them, like wrestle with them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But dads love to do this, and the cliche is it can cause some concern for mothers.
Sure.
Don't throw that baby in the air. Like, what if you don't catch it?
Right.
Obviously, that's a problem. Their advice is basically rely on a third party. So talk to someone else, like, talk to your doctor or to other parents who have had their kid for a little bit longer. Like, what do you think? Where do you think is the healthy line to be drawn? And that's that's something that you guys did earlier. You went to a third party, talked to an expert. Don't just rely on you and your partner. Like, if you've got other resources, draw on them.
Yeah.
No family is an island. It takes a village. Are there any other cliches I should hit?
No, those are all really good ones. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, don't be afraid to go to the doctor like we were. I think we got in the mindset of like, oh, we have an appointment, every 3 months or whatever. Like, that's our time to check in. I'm like, no, heck no. I can pay that person to talk to me.
Yeah.
For however long I'm going to be there. I just show up and they're like, yes, I will take your money.
Yeah.
And I will sit in a room and talk with you. So I was like, yeah, ka-ching, I'm doing that. I'm going to cash that in all day.
Yeah, it's the opposite of that meme, shut up and take my money. Here's my money, now talk.
Exactly, yeah.
So the next fight they bring up is, which experts do we trust? Like, that's where that goes from there. It's like if your wife has a parenting book that says this from this doctor and you've got a blog that you're reading or someone that told you, no, you should do this. It's like, well, who do you go to, And their advice is just work together to create a mix of techniques, because, even the same solution is not going to work every time.
Totally.
So, maybe it helps to, well, this time we'll do what this expert says and next time we'll do what that expert says. It needs to be a collaboration is what they're saying. They also bring up things like fighting over the house being messy or one partner starting to take less care of themselves, because parenting is hard and sometimes you skip a shower on Saturdays because you've got the kid all day. So you've got to get up when they get up and do stuff.
Right.
And their advice, I don't think is particularly helpful. They say, make requests. This blows my mind. Asking your partner to see a therapist. Which I mean, I get, like, if you've got a partner who's going through something, obviously they're struggling, whether it's postpartum depression or something else.
Yeah,
it's healthy to say, maybe it's time for us to seek some help. But if your wife skips a shower one day a week because she's tired, it's not time to say, hey, you should really see a psychiatrist about the fact that you don't bathe, honey.
Absolutely.
What the heck?
Weirdo. Oh my gosh.
So anyway,
I've never not bathed for a day. Ever. Several days.
I call Saturdays no shower days in my house. The next fight is the house is a mess. What to do when the house is a mess. Obviously, the house is going to be a mess if you've got a kid. There's going to be toys everywhere, stuff everywhere. They say, this is good advice, healthy communication is key. Don't attack your partner if the place isn't clean. Well, because cleaning is a two-person job.
Right.
Like, do what you can. Like, come up with a cleaning schedule. This is something my wife and I have talked about doing for a long time, is let's come up with a calendar. Mondays we'll do this, Tuesdays we'll that. We haven't gotten around to it because,
life,
hell, we're busy.
Yeah.
But, it's at least something, it's a solution that we've discussed. So that's in our back pockets.
Well, you're talking about it. So, I mean, even though you don't have a calendar together, you guys communicate about it. So,
yeah. They talk about, why can't I find this thing that I need?
Hey, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. That's something my wife and I talk about a lot. Their advice is make sure there's a place for everything. One solution we came up to that hasn't always helped because we don't always put things there, but we've got a basket that we keep all the essentials in downstairs, so we don't have to go upstairs for the wipes, the hand and face wipes, the nose wipes, the saline spray, the pacifiers, all those things. We've got something. And they also say fights can come when things go missing or essential things like pacifiers. And their advice, I think, is great advice: double up.
Yeah.
Get 2 pacifiers. Get
12.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get multiples of everything. That way, if you leave something in the bathroom at Kroger when you change your kid's diaper, no big deal. You don't have to drive back. Kroger, by the way, for those listeners who don't live in the United States, is a grocery store chain here. I had to stop every once in a while because I know we have a lot of
good little
international
add-on
listeners.
there,
Yeah. So, and there's other fights that every couple is going to go through. Are we having enough sex? That kind of thing. Like, hey, let's just get down to it.
Quick answer, no.
Yeah. Speaking hypothetically,
just off the top of my head, like hypothetical, I'm going to say
if
no.
you're in a parenting relationship, but their advice is very practical and very essential. Be patient if you're a father, especially in the first few months. My God, man, hands off. Like your partner needs time to recover from birth. It's traumatic. A lot goes on.
Yeah, you just sat there, buddy.
Yeah,
you didn't do anything.
Exactly. So there are a million other things that you're going to fight about when you disagree over things. But that'll lead me to another quick thing, and I'll touch on this very quickly because we've got to wrap up. But a list from empoweringparents.com, which is a pretty cool URL.
Nice.
It's the first time I've ever heard of it. Yeah. But they offer some really quick tips. Provide backup. So this is going to be more important when your kid is older than our children because we have newborns, basically toddlers. But be a unified front when you're parenting, even if you disagree on something like, can my kid go to sleepovers at this age? Or can they do this, that, and the other? Or should we discipline them for that? Even if you disagree privately. Be unified. Even if you don't like the way your spouse is doing it, do it the same way. Agree with them. Because that disagreement, not only will it confuse your kid, but also they'll use that against you.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to learn that as children get older, they get manipulative.
Oh, good.
So
good.
If they sense that there's a rift between mom and dad, they're going to exploit the crap out of that.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, be in the same place. Then, once you put the kid to bed, go together, sit downstairs in the kitchen and be like, okay, I disagree with the way we did that, and we should come up with a plan for how we handle that next time. Sometimes you defer to whoever feels more strongly about the issue. If you can let it go, especially if the other person is pretty passionate about it. It's not worth, a minor disagreement is not worth causing real conflict. So if you can let it go, our advice is, I guess, just to let it go.
I like it.
They also say talk about it when you're calm. 3 a.m. when the baby is crying is not the right time to argue over when should the baby move from the bassinet to the crib in their own bedroom. Let tension die down. There's someone posted something online recently that really made me think. The old adage is don't let the sun go down on your anger when you're a husband and wife or partners, whatever. Don't go to bed angry, they say.
Yep.
I think it's the opposite. Do go to sleep. Sleep on it if you're angry. Because the longer you stay up trying to fight over something or trying to resolve something, the more tired you're going to get. And the later it gets, the less control you have over your emotions. So if you can sleep on it, walk away, because sometimes you're just angry.
Yeah.
And once that anger dies down and you can express it, you'll find that you don't actually disagree that much over something.
Yeah, I like it. How about don't go to bed pissed? I think there's like a middle ground there.
Yeah,
because it's like you don't have to be a jerk to your partner when, if you need to get away from the conversation.
Exactly.
You need to fall asleep. You need to do that. That's fine. But don't go to bed being like, well, F you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, don't just stomp your feet. Be like, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. How about just like, okay, we're going to talk about this in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the last tip I'll bring up is take a timeout. So take a few minutes. If you got to take a drive, if you're a little heated, do that. Don't do it in the way of I'm going to storm out and make a point and slam the door on my way out because then you're still fighting. You're still lobbing grenades at the other person. Separate yourselves just for a moment, just to breathe, let it die down, then come back to it. That's all this website is saying is take a timeout. It's better for both of you. So before we go today, I wanted to ask you a question, Brandon. This isn't the dad joke portion of it. This is just a thought I had recently.
Right.
Have you noticed since you started changing diapers that sometimes the smell of baby poop hits you when there's no baby poop around?
Well, that's a really weird question.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because I was cleaning David's high chair this morning, and I was using these sort of gentle Lysol disinfectant wipes.
Yep.
And the smell just instantly brought to mind baby poop. I don't know why.
Oh, weird.
I just wanted to bring that up. If there's any other dads out there that feel the same way, drop us a comment, send us an email or something, because I feel like I'm losing my mind.
I'm going to tell you something, Jesse. Friend to friend. I think you need to see a therapist.
That is wrong. You should not tell me that.
I'm sorry. Too soon.
Way to tie it in. So I think this is a good place to end the show today. If our listeners, Brandon, if they want to reach out to us, where can they find us?
Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. Drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com, and you can find this and every episode anywhere you get your podcasts.
Very nice. So, Brandon, what are we talking about next week?
Well, we got Mother's Day coming up, so we are going to talk a little bit about what we did for our Mother's Days, what we're doing for our wives or our moms, what we're doing for our moms or our moms, what we're doing for other moms. I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about that and maybe reminisce a bit about, our mom's motherhood, whatever it is. We're just going to kick around all things mom.
Awesome. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And Brandon, did I tell you I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon?
Oh, which one came first? Hey!
You took the punchline. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
I thought that actually worked pretty well.
I thought
it just worked really well. Yeah. I thought I just accidentally walked into that perfectly.
Nice. Hey guys, it's Jesse. Before we leave today, I wanted to let you know that you can hear me this week on the most recent episode of another podcast called The Power Pod with Jared Yamamoto that is recorded here at WSB Radio in Atlanta, Georgia, where Brandon and I record Dadsplaining. The interaction that you'll hear is a little tense, so to give you some background, I'm going to play you a clip from one of the podcast's previous episodes.
You know, there's a, kind of a turf war going on because there's other podcasts and other shows that want our space. And, another gentleman that works in our building left us this open mic. He's a little fired up with us.
This message is for the Power Pod with Jared Yamamoto. This is Jesse. I know you and Randy are competing for the best podcast studio, but I know for a fact that last week you and Tim Andrews stole my podcast studio right out from under me when I was trying to record Dadsplaining, a fatherhood podcast. So, Jared, listen closely. If it's a turf war you want, it's a turf war you're going to get. And we'll see which podcast comes out on top.
I feel for the Dadsplaining podcast with Jesse Brooks and Brandon. But you know what? If you want to be big time, you got to be ready to go. You got to be ready to jump into one of these studios.
So yeah, to hear how that all plays out, you can search for the Power Pod with Jared Yamamoto on your favorite podcasting app and give it a listen. All right, we'll see y'all next time.